Good morning, Samantha Pruitt, Endurance Town, USA here, back on our mini series about the humans running across America. And today we have a special guest. Sandy is in the house, and my co-host, Shan Riggs.
Shan over here.
All right, Sandy, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
Awesome.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
So first, what we want to do is allow our listeners to understand a little bit about you, Sandy, who you are as a person before we dig into your endurance lifestyle and specifically your run across the United States of America. So do you mind telling us a little bit about who you are, your backstory, maybe where you grew up, what your lifestyle looked like when you were growing up, and a little bit about who you are as a human?
Yeah. So nothing really interesting. I mean, I think it's a misconception that maybe I was an athlete growing up, which I really didn't get into running until I was already, in my mid to late 30s. Kind of grew up in California. That was where I was from. I was born in a small town called Bakersfield, and we kind of moved around a lot. My dad was in retail. So nothing super interesting there, but that is kind of where I grew up. I have two younger sisters, one who's got 9 years between us, and the other one who's got 15 years between us. So
wow.
Big age gaps. But my sisters were always the athletes. They played softball and things like that. And I was kind of the musical, read a book, draw a picture kind of nerd. Anything I could do to get out of sports and PE and things like that. I don't throw it at me because I probably won't catch it, and don't ask me to run anywhere because it's probably not going to happen. So it was just total non-athletic person. So like I said, I didn't really get interested in that till I was, much older and a parent myself at that time. So not a whole lot to tell.
So you grew up in the Valley of California.
I did. Bakersfield, and then we moved to Fresno and Sacramento, and into high school in Stockton. And then I went to the University of Pacific for a year, and I studied music. So music was always my passion.
Music as in writing or playing, or both?
Both.
Ooh, what'd you play?
Yeah, saxophone, piano, flute.
Saxophone? That's cool.
Yes. It was pretty cool. Like I said, I was kind of a geeky nerdy person at the time, and things kind of changed, and I never actually finished at the university as other things came up, and I ended up getting married at a young age. So yeah.
And you have a daughter, or you have multiple children?
I have one daughter. She's 27 now. Yeah, and I have two grandkids. So my grandson's 3 and my granddaughter's 16 months now.
Awesome. And you somehow moved your way to Florida.
I did. We moved here actually just a few months ago.
Oh, that's recent.
It's very recent. And my husband's actually from here. And so we decided to just make the move and come back east. And it's been really great for everybody. So my daughter actually lives in the next town over with the kids. So it's nice to have them all here.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. So another pandemic move. A lot of movers and shakers during the pandemic.
Yeah. And it wasn't because of that. We had been talking about leaving anyway, just for a more, peaceful, quieter, more enhanced quality of life, if you will. So a little slower pace, easygoing. My husband likes to call it island life, island time. So it's always cool. 5 o'clock here. So
it's always happy hour in Florida. Doesn't matter what time of day it is.
It doesn't matter what time of day it is. So
that's cool. So you weren't doing sports or anything. It sounds all the way through college.
No.
All the way into adulthood. All the way.
Okay. Yeah. No kind of exercise. I think I tried to join a gym once when I was in college, my first year that I was there, and do like aerobics and like an hour type workout, which was like class led, that type of thing. So I did do that for a little bit, but I didn't feel interested till later on. And I actually taught spin class and some aerobic classes for several years, actually 8 to 10 years, I think is how long I did it later on. But that was after I started going to the gym and I started wanting to run. Basically, it was a plan and a journey to become more fit and lose weight, just to be healthy. It wasn't like I was trying to do anything amazing. I didn't even really know anything about, I was very naive. I didn't know anything about the distances of the runs, like what a marathon was or a half marathon. It was just going to the gym, running on the treadmill for an hour just to start losing weight.
How old
And
were
then I
you at this
started
point? Do you
like
remember?
30, 35,
Okay.
34, around there. Yeah, this was, yeah, way later.
Okay.
Way later. And then I started seeing some of these other cool things like the cycling. So I got involved in that. And that's how I started teaching spin class. And that was kind of going on at the same time when I decided I was going to run a half marathon for the first time. So,
Hey, do you remember
and that's
that
when
first
when it
time?
all happened.
Do you remember that
That's
first
when it
time
all
when you walked
happened.
in the gym? I totally can remember still to this day. I'm a late bloomer too. I didn't hit the gym until almost 30, and same thing, lose weight, get healthy, all that stuff. And do you remember that first time you walked into the gym? Oh my gosh, just awful.
Yeah.
You know you needed to
It
be
was-
there, right? But you're like,
right.
"Oh,
And I
what
hated
is
running.
this?"
I mean, I hated running. And there actually is a childhood story I've told several people about my first experience running. I was probably like 7 or 8, and it still sticks in my mind, but it was basically my father taking me out on a jog. You know, it was like something that was, popular back in the 70s, and it was horrific for me. I just remember like I couldn't breathe, my lungs were on fire, and it felt like we were gone forever. And I'm sure we just went like around the block or something very short like that. So, I just, whenever I saw the treadmill, and I just thought, oh my God, it's time to, let your lungs catch on fire. I hated it, but I knew it would be a good way to start losing weight, because running is a great,
Yeah.
great sport for that. Mm-hmm.
So you got into sort of the gym life with spin classes,
Mm-hmm.
treadmill,
Yeah,
exercise classes, and just you were looking for lifestyle fitness.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It was
And then
pretty much was it. Mm-hmm.
you got fired up because you became a teacher. So somehow you went from, I'm going to suck it up and do this class, to now you're instructing the class.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
was a pretty good leap. How'd that happen?
Yeah. I just became very intrigued by the whole thing. And of course, as you start to do something, you might find that you're good at it, and it just becomes easier. And,
Yeah.
you start sitting in the front of the class instead of the back of the class. And the teacher's like, oh, you're great. You should, think about, taking the courses to teach a class too. And that's kind of what was the trigger for me. I was like, oh, I could do this too. So it was like my side hustle.
What did it look like community wise for you then? What you were doing, is that what you were doing for a living?
No, that was like my side job. I
Okay.
I worked for Walgreens for several years, almost 28 years to be exact, and I retired from them before we moved out here. But yeah, so I had a pretty much a 9 to 6 type job most days, and then I would do this 3 times a week after work.
For fun.
For fun. It was for fun. For fun. Everybody needs a side hustle, right? So
Of course. So
yeah.
then you
Yeah.
discovered running wasn't horrible. Your lungs did not catch on fire. Your legs did not fall off. And you signed
Right.
up for a half marathon?
I did. So
Okay.
as the running progressed, it's like, okay, this isn't so bad. And oh, I'm actually enjoying it. And before I do it, like my time on there would fly by. It's been an hour, and okay, I'm feeling pretty good. And so I'd seen this advertisement in the locker room for a half marathon. That was actually the San Jose Silicon Dean Karnazes half Valley
Dean
half
Karnazes.
marathon. Yeah. And so at the time I didn't know who that was, and I didn't really know what a half marathon was, but I thought it would be something, challenging to do, because, after I figured out half marathon was 13 miles, and that's really far. That's really far. But I went ahead and signed up for it. And so from that point I started digging, and I'm like, well, who is this person? And I researched him, and then realized, oh my God, like there's a sport actually past a marathon called an ultra marathon. Like, what is that? And so the more that I just kind of learned and researched, every time I would tap on something, I would learn something new. And then that's how I figured out what Badwater was, and just all these really cool, amazing things. And so that's when I got, I think really into it, and just totally knew that I was going to do Badwater one day.
Well, Dean is on Team USA. He's here with us in quarantine, so we'll tell him this story because you will love that. So you went from, I'm doing a half marathon. You you had a great experience, so much that you decided to discover and start delving into ultra running. How many years was this transition from I've walked into the gym and my lungs are on fire to I have found
doing,
running? Yeah. And I'm
oh,
really
maybe maybe like
quickly.
a year or two.
Wow.
Yeah, because maybe 2 years. I did a lot of, after I did that first half marathon, I was very, like, I just wanted to keep doing as many as I could. And I would find different ones and I would sign up and I would just do them like as many as I could, because it was just like something that I started loving to do. And then I upped it to the marathon distance. And as soon as I could find marathons, I would start signing up for those. And then I think it was 2014 when I decided I was going to start getting ready to be able to apply for Badwater. Mind you, I hadn't even run like 50 miles yet. I was already just focused on, I'm going to run 135 miles in the desert, record heat, and, knowing that only 100 athletes in the world get into that race. Like that was the goal. So then I started doing marathons and I started doing 50Ks that I could sign up for. So I just kept upping my distance. And then it was 2014 when I signed up for my first 51 miler, which was a Badwater Cape Fear.
Oh, okay.
And so I guess, yeah.
So where does this drive come from, or this thirst for challenge? Where's it coming from, or where did it come from at that time in your life?
I think it was I think it was intriguing to see what I was capable of doing. Mm-hmm. And then the more that I was committed to it, I think it's with anything that once you're committed to something, you start to see this progression and you start to see this result. And then there starts to be a hunger and a thirst for like, what else can I do? What else can I do? How much farther can I go? How much more efficient can I be doing this? So I think it was just how far can I push myself? What is the absolute limit of what I can do? So I think that's really what the thirst was. And then just to be a good role model for my daughter, to show her that, you can do anything that you want to do. Somebody as ordinary as me, thinking that, I want to go run Badwater, and I hadn't even run, a 30 miler, yet, or let alone a 100 miler, do the things you need to do to even apply for a race like that.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. Shan was looking a little bit at your running resume, and you've got quite some depth of experience there. Shan, you want to ask her a few questions about that?
Well, first off, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you? Okay.
Well, nice to talk to you. Well, actually, I was curious kind of so you got into racing, looked like started to get a little bit competitive. When did the whole idea of trying to run across the United States come up?
It kind of came up in the midst of trying to, still get my name into the hat to run for Badwater. I was actually watching another athlete, Pete Kostelnik, who I didn't know at the time. And, he's actually a really good friend of mine now, but at the time I didn't know who he was. And so it just the saying, you never know who's watching you and who you're inspiring. Mm-hmm. I was just amazed because he was getting ready to embark on this journey. So I was like following the journey, and I was just like, oh my God, like that's so cool. Like, that's crazy. Like, who can do that? So I'm thinking all these crazy things, but then I'm like, I wonder if I could do that. No, I want to do that too. I can totally do that. So that's kind of where the little seed got planted in my head. And I just became, like the next big goal. Like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that.
So that
I can totally
running across America goal was before Badwater, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, it was before. Yeah.
I had those reversed in my head. And Shan left us for just a brief moment because we are in quarantine. So we're all getting COVID tested today. And when they knock on your door, you have to answer. So he'll be back. But
gotcha.
Sorry, Shan. So you decided and set the goal to run across America, even though the longest you'd ever run was at that point a marathon. Is that correct? Or no, you said a 50 miler. No. You had done a 50.
Yeah, I had done 50 milers. I'd probably done a 100 miler because I was getting ready. You have to run 300 milers in the calendar year to be able to apply. So I think I had already run 100, but I hadn't like actually submitted an application or applied or anything like that.
Okay. Okay. What was your first 100
so-
miler? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. It was,
Never
it was
forget.
in, it was in Daytona. It was a Daytona 100. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
a road race actually here in Florida. And at the time I'd never been here before. So I didn't know anything about humidity, and I'd never run in this climate at all. So when I came out, when I first arrived here, was like walking out and the doors open, is just this big, thick cloud of like wet air. Like I
Yeah.
can't breathe.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I can't breathe.
Ah,
How am I going to
humidity's
run
the
here?
worst.
You'd rather go
So,
run in
yeah.
Death Valley. Huh?
But yeah, another story. But the comparisons between dry heat and this stuff out here is this is way worse. But yeah, so that I remember this was my first time experiencing that. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
So you had your sights on Badwater. So you were working your way towards it, getting your races accomplished so you could apply. But in the meantime, you got distracted by this, could I run across America? And of course I could, and I should. And you started, you let the planning begin.
Yeah. And I don't think much planning really happened. I mean, that was me saying I was going to do it. And a lot of people can say, I want to do this. And it's, you have dreams and things you want to do, but it didn't really actually come into like, okay, now I'm actually, have people supporting this, and this is what's going to actually happen probably for like another year.
Okay.
So, I mean, in my head, I knew I wanted to do it. And so I was running all the races and all the miles that I could, because I thought at the time that's what I needed to do to get ready to do something like that. But
did you
yeah,
find that the training, now in hindsight, looking back, did you find that most of the training that you needed was mental or physical?
I think it's mental for sure. I mean, your body will physically, can do a lot of the things that you ask of it. It's this up here that is the blocker, because once you get focused on something, this hurts or that hurts or whatever, something's wrong, it just becomes like the trigger and the focus that your brain tells you want to stop, and your body's, there's nothing wrong with you. I've come to learn that it's all mental.
Agreed. Shan, you're back. Do you want to continue asking your questions? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if you shared with the audience.
Yes.
I had to run out for a few minutes for a quick COVID test. So I'm back. I just have that tickle in the nose when they give you. So so sorry, I missed some of those questions, but I'm not sure if you brought this up, Sam and Sandy, but so you ended up with your run doing a record run. I think it was 54 days, and it was a record that stood for a long time. When you were conceiving the whole idea of running across America, first off, why in the first place try to do something that big, and then second, were you going for the record from the beginning, and also why for that?
I think initially I didn't think anything about a record. It was just like a really huge, challenging task at hand, just to run across America. And then I came to, think later on, when I realized what the woman's record was, that it was something that I think was, appealing to me. So it became about, let's go for the record. I might as well try and go for the record. If I'm going to go all, if I'm going to do this, let's do that. So yeah, it wasn't the initial plan, but then it became like, something I wanted to go for and do and break that, 30-year-old record.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so on day one, you were starting from the steps there in San Francisco, right? And and were you starting off at record pace, or how did you decide how far to go each day, and did that change over time?
It did. I had a lot of people advising me, and I refer to them as like the elders, and people like Pete and Marshall and Ulrich were like, had given me a lot of advice. And with something like this, I mean, you don't want to go out and do like too many miles right away, because your body does need to kind of acclimate to it. So initially, the first week was, the plan was to do between 50 to 55. just to kind of acclimate a little bit, and then to gradually start to increase the miles. And, the first, I think 3 or 4 weeks I went through 11 mountain climbs that I had to go through, and ranging anywhere from 8 to 12,000 feet that I had to get over. So, to be able to get 50 to 55 miles through the climbing, was a pretty solid plan. And then once you get back into the flatness of going through, the middle of the states, was when I was able to, do 60 to, 64 miles a day. So that was there was a lot of variances in the plan. We made adjustments as needed, but it was pretty conservative in the beginning.
Yeah, that's interesting when 2 marathons a day is conservative.
Yeah.
Well, initially, at the start of any run, you feel so, energized, and you initially, like, I wanted to keep going. I remember on the first day, like, I wanted to do, more, but more is not always better. So, I played it safe and listened to, the advice that I was given, and it was good advice. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't quite that ambitious, but I did talk to Marshall and Pete ahead of time and got similar advice, and I'm glad I took it. And
Right.
myself. What time of year did you do it?
So it was September. So it was like in the fall. Yeah, it was September of 2017.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good time of year to do it. So you're going
Yeah.
through the desert in California, you're going through Nevada desert when it's maybe not quite as hot, or at least cooling down a little bit before you get to Utah.
Yeah. It was actually, and it's, the weather, well, I was hoping it was going to be a certain way, but it wasn't. So the desert was still really hot. I even had to go through, I saw every weather imaginable, blizzards. Like, I went through snow in Colorado, and we actually had to do an extra, instead of 2 runs a day, because I would do one in the morning and take, break, and then do another one after lunch. But having to do a 3rd run on this one particular day because there was a storm coming in, and there was fear that we would get stuck in near Rabbit Ears Pass in Colorado, and wouldn't be able to get over, this mountain. And, I could have lost a day or two. So I had to go out and do like another 20 miles. I think that day I did like 70 miles just to make sure we pushed ahead. And we had to, I didn't really want to go and do another run. It was one of those days I was done. I'm pretty sure Cinder was pushing me out of the RV. I don't want to go, in the snow with my snow cleats. And it was really, really cold. And yeah, it was all uphill.
It always seems all uphill.
Right.
So what was it a day for you? Like, what was a typical day? And did you have typical days? Did you have like a pretty, did you try to stick to a schedule every day, or was each day going by the
No,
seat
we
of your
had
pants?
we had a pretty regimented schedule. It was pretty routine, like clockwork, on my feet for 12 to 14 hours and then off. So I'd get up in the morning, I would have breakfast, I'd get dressed, lit up like a Christmas tree, and out the door, right, with my chase car and my support guy. And we would do, usually I would do 30 to 32-ish miles, maybe 34, depending on where the RV could stop for me to take my lunch break, in which I would get back in, have lunch, get stretched, and then go back out and, do it again. And then the RV would drive up ahead, and then I would, basically run to the RV. So in my mind, it was always like 2 runs a day.
Right.
And the goal was always to get to the RV. So.
Right. Just break it down into chunks you could manage.
Yes.
Right. And that was just
Yes.
get to the
And,
RV.
yeah,
So
that
was
yes.
how far ahead was the RV? Was it 3 miles, 10 miles, something else?
She would, well, no, I never saw her until it was lunchtime. So it was just me in
Wow.
the chase vehicle. So once I got up and I left, he supported me from the car, with whatever I needed. And that was the system. And she would drive ahead because she had so many things to do. There was only 2 people. So it was Cinder in the RV, and then my guy in the car, following me. And that was it. So she, had shopping and laundry, and she was doing fundraising, and so she had a ton of things to do. So, she would go ahead and find a place, plan the meals, and, I would see her at lunch, and then I would see her at dinner, and then we would all go to sleep and get up and do it again the next day. So that was
So you
pretty
lived
much
out
how
of
that
the
went.
RV. The RV was your
Pretty
home.
much. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
That's cool.
And then when you're, yeah, when you're like in a bubble like that for so long, I mean, I didn't have contact with anybody, and that was, for good reason, just so I could stay focused on the one task at hand, which was to run. I didn't talk to my family. I didn't, have any kind of contact with what was going on in the world. So I'm like in this little bubble. So when we would come to like big cities, it was like overwhelming for me because, most of the time we're like on, these roads and, places where there's not a big, big city. But when we had to cross through big cities, it was like, oh my God, it's so like busy here. Can we hurry up and get out? It's crazy.
So this was 2017. So there was, some Facebook and other social media, and probably have phones that would get reception. But you're saying you were pretty much unplugged. You weren't connecting to people that way, or checking emails and nothing like that.
Nope.
That's why you were able to run so fast, because you didn't distract yourself for all the crazy.
Yeah, I think
that's super smart.
Running. So so no contact. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And what were you eating and drinking?
Oh my God, what wasn't I eating and drinking? I ate. I mean, that was my second job, was to run, and the other one was to eat.
Right.
So I mean, I had 3 meals a day with the meal. I mean, and like, for example, like breakfast could be, it was usually some kind of oatmeal or cream of wheat, toast, a Coke, because things with calories. Normally I'm a coffee drinker, but I only ate things with like dense calories. Otherwise, it would just take up space in my stomach. So I didn't really have any more vegetables or anything like that during that whole time that I was. Everything was pretty, calorie heavy, high protein, high fat, high carbs, and everything. And with every meal, I had a big shake. So 3 big shakes, 3 big meals. Plus, I was eating all day long up until the time I fell asleep. And then I would wake up and still eat, because we'd keep food on the side of the bed, because, you're starving. All your body's just like a furnace. But especially by like the 3rd or 4th week. So it's like, what wasn't I eating? So like towards the end, I was so tired of chewing. We'd put mashed potatoes in a bag and cut the end, like when you're frosting a cake, and it would be like, just squeeze it into my mouth, because I didn't want to chew anything anymore. It was just exhausting.
Yeah, I remember getting towards the end and feeling like I never wanted to eat again. I'd eaten enough for years. Were you able to maintain weight, or did you lose weight even though you were eating so much?
No, I was actually, I don't think I lost any weight. I'm sure that I probably looked leaner and I had more muscle, but like my weight was pretty much the same when I was done, I came home.
From the people we've talked to, especially people that are going for the record, that seems to be an important feature, to not get behind in calories, because otherwise things start to fall apart and people get injured pretty quickly. Did you deal with any injuries?
I had a bout of tendonitis, which is typical. That usually happens to me in any endurance activity that I'm doing that's usually longer than 2 days. But it was manageable, and it actually healed on its own during the run with, massage and tape and ice and that type of stuff. I think when we went through the cold in Colorado, I mean, that I think helped to loosen it up and help it go away. But it was, an injury that was manageable. There was a couple of days where I had to walk my miles, but I walked them every day. So I'm a very good walker. I've learned how to walk. Yeah, I can walk pretty fast. So, yeah.
Did you run into any surprises out there? Anything that you didn't see coming that was a bit challenge?
No, I mean, nothing. I mean, it was a challenge every day. I mean, sometimes it was just, just like I was talking about, or the mental, after a while, it's like, you don't want to, I don't want to be on this road anymore. This hurts, that hurts. It's just the whole idea of like, what am I doing? There's like, you can't see an end. There's never a finish line. Not in something like that till you're like at the very end. So sometimes it felt like I was running into nothingness, and it was just overwhelming. And then when we were going through, I think it was Ohio, it was raining really bad. And so like, I just kept getting splashed and this is why I hate running in the rain now, and I won't do it. Like, it was just, I felt demoralized and defeated. Like, it just kept splashing these trucks. And I was just like, I mean, yeah, it was horrific. So I think dealing with some of the weather and just that type of stuff was challenging, and feeling like there was never an ending point was challenging.
Yeah, let's dig into
some of that.
mental game a little bit. So for listeners who have never done anything this outrageous or this challenging with their physical bodies and their mental, emotional minds, what are some of the tools that you utilize during this race? And Badwater, we'll touch on that too, but that are just part of your everyday toolbox in terms of building a strong emotional mind?
I think it's just, for me, focusing on my own, what I'm doing at that time in the day, like small goals, instead of looking at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Is more manageable and easy to stay focused. If you're not focused, then that's when things start spiraling out of control. But if you're focused on these small goals at hand, then it's easier to move forward through the day. At least that's what it came to be. So like, even in my mindset now, I focus on what I can do, and I focus on me. I don't pay attention to the outside. I don't pay attention to what other people are doing. I'm actually really not a super competitive person. My goals really are only to be better than myself, to beat myself. That's really who my competition is. So I found that when I don't think about, other things or other people or activities that are going on that could interfere, I'm more able to stay focused on what I'm doing and only worry about what I need to do to move forward.
So you have a conversation
something
with
that
yourself.
long,
I have a lot of conversations with myself.
Does it ever get
I do.
nasty? Does it ever get nasty? Is there ever that inner voice that tells you to quit?
Oh yeah, that voice has been there. My bad attitude in myself. Yeah, it's, I would not be honest if I was to tell you no. Yes, I've had that happen.
Yeah.
And to me that was like, I'm just mentally, like, I need a break.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a time when, I stopped running for a while. I took almost a year off because mentally I wanted nothing to do with running at all. This was 2020, actually. It was the pandemic year, but
okay.
Yeah, 2019, I just finished, a multi-day race. And then I went ahead and I did this 100-mile I shouldn't have really done because I wasn't mentally, my head wasn't right. And It was not a good race for me. And I couldn't see the good in it. All I kept seeing was the bad. So my attitude was not good, so I had to do a self-check. So.
And you did, and like, you gave yourself
I need a break. I did. And I had not done that ever. So I took a long break, and I didn't want to, and I didn't make myself anymore. And so I think after taking the break, I've come to realize this year that I'm in a much better place. My head is straight. I can, focus on what I need to do, what I want to do, and be okay with it, and just be kinder to myself.
Yes.
Instead of beating myself up a lot. Yes. I run very intuitively. This is my best. This is what I'm going to do today. And I push myself when I need to, but I don't ever beat myself up anymore. I stopped doing that.
Good.
It's not healthy. Not healthy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jan, you were going to ask something. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's all right. I've had some audio issues. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Well, and so you've taken a break now, Sandy. Do you have plans on what's next?
Yeah, I've kind of got my eye on I'm really loving the multi-day stuff. So I think that's going to be kind of, something I'm going to focus on for the next couple of years, try and, see what I can do, get my miles up, and, set some goals for myself. I'd like to go to Hungary next year and have a 6-day event over there and see what I can do with that. Yeah.
I saw on Ultra Sign Up you had a few 6-day races in there. Is that what you mean when you say multi-day?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's no joke.
Yeah.
They're running what? They're running vacations. That's what they told us. That's what the brochure said.
Yeah, who doesn't want to run for 6 days with no sleep?
Exactly.
On a track. It's fun.
Are you talking about tracks? Or are you talking about stage races?
Oh, track. This one was a track.
Oh goodness gracious. Talk about mental game. Wow.
Yeah.
For something like that or the USA run, do you do things to distract yourself? Do you listen to music, other things?
Good question. I do listen to music. I always have, and I'll just put one earpiece in my ear, and I listen to all kinds of genres. I've been asked, well, what do you listen to? Like, can you share your playlist? I'm like, not if you're going to judge me. I'm not going to share my playlist because I've got all kinds of music. But I usually try and set it to like a certain type of cadence. Just it allows me to kind of zone out. So I'll listen to music, and then usually I just do problem solving, thinking about things, and then time just passes by. And I don't know if it's just a weird, uncanny gift, but I can actually just get lost for several hours at a time.
That's good when you have 6 days to go.
Several
hours is a chunk is probably important.
Right?
Some people try to distract themselves from the pain or the boredom or the whatever, and other people say that they try to embrace the pain. Do you have a philosophy or a way that you approach it?
I don't know. I guess to me, the music and the deep thought is the distraction. And I guess for me, I don't get bored. It's not boring for me. I don't know. I know it sounds really weird, like really bizarre, and people think that
it doesn't sound weird
nuts.
to me, but it sounds weird to Sam and almost everybody else. So
right. I mean, it was right. It was like 1,500 something loops on this track.
Wait, so how far is that? That would be I was 300 something miles.
422, because the track wasn't a typical track. It was at the Pettit Ice Center in Wisconsin. So they put the track over the ice around the ice in the middle. So it was like a 0.43. So it's more oval shaped. So the laps were a little bit longer. So
did you reverse them?
Like 0.44. Every 4 hours we switched.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
We switched. But yeah, and for me, it's just, I don't know, just if you're not thinking too much about it, the time goes by fast, and I actually enjoy it. The longer I can go and keep the same pace, it's just like a huge, like it feels good. I don't know if that sounds crazy, but
no, it makes sense because the body chemistry. What's going on in your body chemistry. It makes perfect sense. But it's just interesting to think about the amount of mental strength and emotional strength that is required. The physical strength is kind of obvious, and we all sort of look towards that first as being a thing for ultra running or ultra, adventure and all of that kind of stuff. People think of the physical body aspect, quite readily, but I think they underestimate and explore the depths of the mental and emotional aspect. And you're just, that to me seems to be your superpower at this point. And I'm so curious how you've developed that and how you continue to, nurture it and cultivate it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know.
Were you just born this way? Sandy, were you just born this way?
I don't know. I mean, I think as a child growing up, I think when I did things like on my own, like whether it was like reading a book, like I was very content and I would just be involved in that. And so I guess maybe it's a behavior I've always had in different, I was displayed differently. I didn't realize I could be so content and just time would pass. But I mean, I guess when I think about it, because I never really thought about it till you asked me that. I mean, I guess maybe I was born this way. I've always been that way. I didn't really realize it until it's kind of showcased differently, in this type of sport where it stands out a little bit more.
It's such a strength, and also being alone and being willing to be with yourself, by yourself, in your thoughts, in your emotions. Shannon and I are having this fascinating human experiment where we're completely alone, isolated from one another, but also from the world. We can't leave our rooms and all that kind of stuff. And so it's been interesting. And thank goodness we're all ultra runners, because we've already developed this skill set of being comfortable with ourselves, for long periods of time in the outdoors and all that kind of thing. But I think I'm curious what your thoughts are with the pandemic. You took that year off of grace for yourself, which I totally applaud. I think that's phenomenal, and more people need to be kind to themselves like that. But we're coming slowly out of this pandemic experience where, life was put on pause for most of us. And in terms of your own thoughts and mental and emotional experience, what would you advise people who are out in the world who are still struggling mentally and emotionally to bring themselves out of this dark time?
I mean, I guess, the advice I would give is kind of what I gave myself. And it was just to be okay with, at first just I wasn't doing much and I didn't want to force myself to do something I didn't want to do. But that I had to do something. So you need to find something that you're okay with, that you can do. And it doesn't have to be running. It can be working in your garden. It could be, starting a book. It could be, writing a blog. It could be whatever, but you need to find something that you look forward to that's going to be comforting to help you, have some way to release. It can be anything. And I did a lot of time I spent with my grandkids during the pandemic because we were in the same little bubble together. So I nurtured myself with them. And, I would take them outside and we would play and I would spend time with them because I had no desire to run and I wasn't going to force, but I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed taking them outside. I enjoyed spending the time with them going to the park. And then so slowly, like I started to be a little bit more like, I think I'm going to go for a little run today. And it was like, okay, a couple miles around the block. I mean, it was very small. And it was when I felt like it. And it was only as far as I wanted. And I was okay with that. Like I knew I was okay with that. Instead of it has to be at least 10, Sandra. It has to be. I stopped doing that. And I just let it be what it wanted to be until I was like, I want to run. Like I was like, all of a sudden the passion was just there again. I was hungry for it again. And it wasn't even like, because I had something in mind I wanted to do. I just wanted to run. So you kind of just have to let it evolve on its own, but you have to have something that gives you peace and something to release and enjoy, and to be kind to yourself and not to beat yourself up because you're struggling. And, I've been there, I went through that, lots of people are going through that, and when you're not exercising a lot, it's hard to, keep a healthy lifestyle and weight sometimes. And that's a challenge. But, I think once you start to, be okay with what you're doing, that thirst or hunger to do more is going to come on its own. And then it's going to be more, easy to have a habit again and start back up, just to be patient and kind to yourself.
Yes. Yes.
You were able to identify that you needed to take a break. I think a lot of people, especially in our sport, sometimes struggle with that, and we hear about people that overtrain and get themselves into a rut or injury. Do you have any idea of how were you able to tell that you needed to take that break?
Yeah, so it was in 2019. I had done a multi-day race that I really wanted to do, but the whole time I was there, this first time that I did that race, I was mentally like miserable. Like I couldn't stay focused was the thing. And I just wanted it to be over. And at the time I had an injury that was the tendonitis was really bad. I couldn't deal with the pain physically. So it was my excuse. So basically I struggled through that race and I finished, and I still, was happy that I finished it, but mentally I wasn't right. And so a month later, I went and I did another 100-mile race, which I had no business doing. A, because my injury hadn't healed, and B, because mentally I knew my head wasn't right. So I went into the race and it was just horrific from the beginning. I'll just tell you, I got lost several times. And then so every time something went wrong, the wheels kept falling off in my head. It took me probably 12 hours longer than it would have, on a regular, 100-mile road race that I would have done. So for me, mentally, that was like the worst race I'd ever had. And I couldn't even be happy with the fact that at least I finished it. And that was a huge mental check for me. I'm like, I didn't want to run. I didn't want to run anymore. I wanted nothing to do with the sport. I hated it. I thought I was horrible. I thought I was a bad athlete. I sucked. I shouldn't be running. I got no business running. So my head wasn't right. And I knew that. And so at that point, I was just like, I'm not going to run. And my husband was like, don't run. If you don't want to run, don't run. Nobody's going to make you. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
Mhm.
So then it was just this mental thing I went through probably for about 3 months. Like, I should be running, but I don't want to. I should be running, but I don't want to. And so I think I tried to force myself to, probably for another month or so before I finally was just like done. But then after that, it was just that I knew I wasn't right, because that's not normally how I would be. That's not me.
Mhm.
I'm always, always positive and always like, okay, something's happened, but this is what I can do now. Like, I'm still want to finish. For me to not want to finish, I knew that was something was wrong. For me to want to quit a race, that's something's wrong in my head. So for me, that was a huge wake up call. That's
great. That's really good advice. I think there's a lot of us that, we need that motivation to get going. And then there's some of us too. And I think I'm in this camp where I'll keep going to my own detriment. So knowing when you need that kick in the pants, and knowing when you need to take that break, or skills that I think anybody could use. So it's great to hear from somebody that's had the success you have.
Yeah. And either one of those scenarios requires so much self-awareness and self-love, right? So just the awareness of, do I need to get off the sofa? Is this really, am I not being kind to myself by not doing what I need to do to take care of my mind, body, etc., to be my best self? Or do I need to stop what I'm doing, whatever the behavior is? The awareness that's required in the self-love. So good job, lady. And that's the kind of role modeling we need, not only in the sport, but honestly in the world. You've got your family, you've got your grandchildren, you've got your extended running community. So thanks for being that kind of role model that we need. See, Shan's paying attention. He sort of sat up straight. So Shan's right above me in this hotel, and we both have treadmills, of course, because we are training for a big ass race, right? So we have all the things to do.
Cool. Yeah,
it's pretty hilarious to be training like this for 14 days in a hotel room. But anyway, so I know how much running Shan races.
That's a mental toughness right there, by the way. I just want to say, in your room on your treadmill, like, oh my gosh, that's that's awesome.
It is not awesome. It's definitely not awesome.
Well, at first we were like, we got the treadmills and we were just like lighting the rooms on fire and texting each other and all, like, and then it'd be like day 5 and then 6. We're like, so we had to come up with fun ways to, support each other as teammates and support ourselves in this moment. Yeah. And it's been really interesting, has it not, Shan?
Yeah.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine, but that's some very amazing stuff right there, you guys.
So you're up to
a year and a half.
Yes, it has. You're up to doing these either road or track multi-days, huh? That's kind of what you're looking towards for your next, douse of shenanigans.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I just, something about this last one that I did, like I said, and I was so pleased with the fact that this was the one that I hit. I went back to the same race, the one I told you about that was mentally, I didn't do well.
Okay.
I couldn't stay focused. So when I went back this year to do it, I had trained differently. I had, different goals, but I actually went by myself. I didn't have anybody there crewing me or supporting me. So it was all by myself. Completely by myself. But I just went with the mindset of kind of what I was telling you, like, I'm going to focus on me. This is what I'm going to do. And if something happens, I'll deal with it. And I have to be okay with that. And so I was just really pleased. I had a PR. I actually took first place for the women. Yeah. And I got, 22 extra miles than I did from the first time. So, I was really, really pleased. And when I was done, I felt fantastic. Like, I wanted to keep going. So, so I was just really happy with the outcome, because when I was done, I didn't feel like I hate this. And, I was like, I want to do this again.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
So, I don't know. I pretty much anything I finish that's more than 50 miles, I hate it at least for a few hours. Usually like a day or two, and then by the third day, I'm looking up.
Ready to do it again, right? Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. That's how I know in my mental check too, that like I'm in so much in a better place than I was
Yeah.
a while back, that it's just, yeah.
So Sandy, are you writing a book?
I I get asked that all the time because I've been working on it, and I've got a mirage of different stories that I've written that portray different chapters, but I haven't finished anything.
Yeah, that's
so
okay. It's a
I
long
do
process.
plan to finish. It is a long process
Yeah.
because there's so many pieces and stories and things that, you know, but yeah, my goal is to complete a book soon.
Well, we talked to Marshall earlier in the week and about his process of finishing his, I think his second book. And it sounded like it pained him greatly to get through that whole process. So
7 years. I was like, what? Of course, he's got the patience of a saint, so 7 years for him is very reasonable.
He does. Uncle Marsh, love that guy.
So before we wrap up our conversation with you, this was really inspiring and beautiful. I'd like to ask you a question, Sandy. What does endurance mean to you?
I think endurance, what it means to me is what's in your heart and what you want to do, what you believe you can do. Endurance is about pushing beyond what's comfortable, going outside your zone and doing the things that seem scary, and just going for those dreams and goals.
Awesome. Well said. Thank you. I know people want to find out about some of your stories along the way, Badwater and so forth. Where can they find you online or read more about you or connect to you on social?
Yeah. So on Instagram, you can follow me at ultragirl52.
Okay.
You can find me on Strava, Sandy Ann V. And on Facebook, same thing, Sandy Ann V. You can find me there. And I'm actually working on a website to launch soon because I've been training some folks on for ultra running distances, and I am coaching.
Oh, cool.
But to actually officially have a site where you can go and see more things about me, and my daughter's helping me with that. So hopefully in the next month or two, we'll have that up and going.
Sweet. I might reach out to you. I'm going to do my first 240 next year. And I'm very into the multi-day thing. So yeah, that's so good to know because I mean, to be honest, it's hard to find female coaches in this space. Not that the men aren't great, but many of us prefer a female for a multitude of reasons. So sweet lady. That's so good. Okay. Awesome. Any last thoughts, Shan?
No, this has been great. And it's good to hear the physical accomplishments, but also how you've really managed to kind of figure yourself out over these past few years.
Yeah, it's been a journey in itself. So running across America definitely changed my life for sure. So
has a tendency to do that.
Yeah.
And the journey continues. Can't wait to see what you're up to next. We'll be following you closely.
Well, thank you again so much. I appreciate the time to share.
Thanks, Sandy. Good to see you both. Thanks for your time.
All right.
Have a great day, guys.
You too. Bye.